Story time on my insane life and why I've been out of school for 2 weeks. If you've been following my recent videos, you know that there was this actually insane snowstorm or ice storm that hit Ole Miss and Oxford just as a whole. And so much of the other country, but like Oxford was like in the heart of it, which is crazy because Oxford rarely ever even gets a little drop of snow. Anyways, all these reportings were coming in being like there's this huge ice storm that's coming in Oxford, blah blah blah, like whatever, be scared. But like nobody was really that worried about it because we were all like, no way it's gonna be this bad. Even Ole Miss, the university, like sent out emails and they were like, if you can leave, you should probably leave. Did we listen to that? Nope. We were smart enough to go to Walmart a couple days before and stock up on like water and food in case it got that bad. It was also more so just an excuse for me to go get like 5 pizza Lunchables. Also got real stuff, like we got water, like stocked up on water and stocked up on stuff that like you didn't have to cook or refrigerate. Anyway, the night of the storm rolls in and we're all in our dorms like, oh my god, like when's it gonna hit? And like we're looking at our windows and we're like outside and it's just like so underwhelming. It's like they sent out all of this and put us into a panic for a little bit of snow and maybe a little bit of sleet. So it hit on a Friday night, so then the next day, we didn't have class anyway, but I would have still been able to get to class. Like, it was just completely normal. And I was literally like, guys, I'm from Missouri, I'm from the Midwest, I'm used to this, like, they're just overreacting. Yeah, and then that night came, and the second wave came, which I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware that there were, like, multiple. So yeah, that night rolls around, I go to sleep, everything's great, wake up with no power. And I was like, okay. So now it's kind of serious. Let me tell you, we had like no power for the whole day. So we were like bored. We were stuck in our dorm because now we're actually iced in. Like now roads are covered in ice, like inches, cars are covered in ice. You can't travel anywhere. It was bad. Still, I was like, how does ice do this? Like, how does ice cause this much destruction? I'll figure that out later. I'm just sitting in my dorm with my friends and my parents were like, you should have come home, we told you. And I was like, okay, I know, but power's gonna come back on and it's gonna be great. We're all just gonna be having fun in the dorms. School's probably gonna get canceled. Like, I didn't want to leave because I was scared I was gonna get FOMO if school got canceled and then everyone was like partying it up at school. It's kind of how it was when the first wave hit, and then that night everyone was like, wow, like this is so fun, like we're just iced into our dorms and everything. And then like the power kind of went out and everyone was like, okay. That same day the power came on, we were literally just sitting there. We were bored because you can't do anything. We had like no service, you couldn't watch anything, no Wi-Fi, nothing. We were cut off, and then the power came back on and we were like, hallelujah. We were like, dude, it can't get better than this. Like we're a little small college town, a bunch of college students, and we're just trapped on campus. Like, we're just gonna all hang out with each other. Think again, because the power went out. Again, that night, power went out. And I was like, got it. At this point, it's not fun anymore, because it's only fun when the power's on and you have heat. Let me tell you, our dorm got so cold. My friend who was on the second floor, Ava, couldn't even like go into her dorm because it was freezing. Just think about it, it's ice storming outside and you don't have heat, and you're in a weaselly little dorm. Anyways, I don't know what they did, but I think they brought in a bunch of generators because we're like a liability. There are hundreds of people in these dorms with no power on a college campus. Like, that's not good, and I think they declared it a national emergency. So somehow they got the power on in the dorms, but everywhere else in Oxford shut down. No power, no water, nothing, no heat. And if you didn't stock up on food, you don't have food either. At this point, you couldn't travel. Like, the roads, you couldn't get basically into your car because it's iced in, actually. So for a couple days, we were genuinely doing nothing in our dorms, like keeping each other busy by talking to each other. Like, you couldn't do anything. Now we're like, okay, we should have left. Like, there's no FOMO happening here. Like, I just want to leave. School got canceled for that following week. So genuinely, we were just sitting and doing nothing. And you couldn't do online school because none of my teachers had power. So it's not like you could join a Zoom because there was no like cellular or anything. So the reason the roads were so bad, because you guys are gonna be like, okay, well, like, the roads couldn't have been that bad. It's because they didn't know to ice the roads or anything like that, or they didn't have the equipment to do it, because it's this never happened, so they didn't have the equipment for it. That's why it was so bad. Anyway, a few days passed by of boredom in our dorm, and my friends and I are like, all right, we're done. We are going to attempt to drive back to St. Louis, because we can't sit here anymore and do nothing. It is the most boring thing ever, and we're running out of food. To get back to St. Louis, I usually go through Memphis, and Memphis is only like an hour away from Oxford, and you get on that highway, go through Memphis, straight book it to St. Louis. However, we had been hearing that it was taking people 5 hours to get to Memphis, and maybe even more. Keep in mind, it usually takes one hour. I don't know if it was people trying to evacuate or if it was crashes. It was probably a mix of both, but my parents were like, we don't really know if we want you driving. And we were like, no, we are coming to St. Louis. We're done. The day we were planning to leave, my roommate, Sydney, booked a flight to Florida because she wanted to go visit her sister and be in warmer weather. But that day rolls around, and she can't even get to the airport because there are no Ubers, and it would have taken, I don't even know how long it would have taken. Then her and another one of my friends decided they're going to book a flight out of St. Louis, and we're all just going to drive to St. Louis together. We needed to drive my car because my car is like the heavy-duty, big snow car, and I don't park on campus because I don't have a parking pass, so that was a whole ordeal of getting someone to drive us to our car, and the roads, we were like drifting off the roads. Then we got to our car, and it was me, 3 of my friends, and we're all hammering at my car because my car was a block of ice. It was literally a block of ice. And I was so scared to see my car because so many people's cars were getting destroyed by trees because this ice was making the trees so heavy that they would just fall. Like, they were falling into people's houses, into people's beds and showers. I would wake up and there would just be a tree. And you'd be like, okay. When I tell you guys, this was way worse than they even said. Somehow got my car, somehow packed it up, and then the next day, we were on the road. I think it ends there, but no, it doesn't. Remember that highway that I said I usually take back home? Yeah, we couldn't take that highway because it was standstill traffic for miles. It was going to take us, 2 days to get back to St. Louis. There were all these pileups because of the ice, and we just, our parents didn't even allow us to go on that highway. So we had to take random back roads to get back to St. Louis. It took us 3 hours to get out of Oxford. This tiny town, it took us 3 hours. Let me tell you why. We were about 15 minutes into the drive, going so slow, taking these random back roads, and there were just power lines all throughout the road. And we came up to this dead end because there was a power line, and then we decided, it's okay, we'll turn around and take another road. So we turned around, we started taking this other road, we're on it for 15 minutes, tree blocking the entire road. So we had to turn around, go back the power line way, and we were like, can you drive over a power line? And we were like, we gotta do it anyway. So we drove over maybe 15 power lines on our trip out of Oxford. I'm not kidding. This is why the whole city doesn't have power. It's because every single power line was down. Every single tree was down. It was like a maze. I didn't even think we were gonna make it. And on top of that, we didn't have cellular, so we were just guessing where to go. There was a car in front of us, and we were just following it, and we were like, hopefully they're going to the same place as us, because we don't know. I'm not kidding. We started following a random car because the maps wouldn't load. The funniest part of this whole story, which I have video and picture proof of, is when we finally made it onto the highway. Remember that ice that was on my car that we couldn't really get off? Yeah, the whole entire block of ice on my roof of my car fell onto the windshield right in front, and I couldn't see, and we were on the highway surrounded by semi-trucks. I did indeed have to swerve on the highway to knock the ice off. That was pretty lit. I put my hazards on, and I was literally like, all right, if you're around me, you better hope I don't hit you. Also, at one point, I while I was driving, stuck my hand out and attempted to grab the piece of ice, but that didn't really work. Swerving, however, the swerving did work. By the grace of God, 9 hours later, we made it home. School got canceled another week. I finally go back on Monday. That's my story about how I survived the great ice storm of 2026. On a real note though, there are a lot of people who were really affected by this, so I'm really thinking about them and hoping things get better fast. Anyways, that's all. Bye!